Our protagonist is this guy right here. In his past life, he was stuck in bed thanks to a dreadful sickness, just wishing he could linger a bit longer in his next life. Who could have imagined that the author would drop him into a dragon's body with an average lifespan of at least 10, not to mention thousands of years? To top it off, his clan is packed with powerful figures. His father happens to be a Tier 0 dragon, the highest rank on the continent. All his old man needs to do is flex his muscles, and an entire kingdom could face utter ruin. His grandfather is among the 12 elders of the dragon god's temple, right after he awakened. All the elders were stunned when they discovered he possessed 4 attributes, a first in history. Even the legendary Dragon King only had 3 attributes to his name. His mere presence even posed a threat to higher beings who would stop at nothing to eliminate him. Alright. Enough chit-chat. Let's kick this off. The story has wrapped up its first season. Hope you're ready for the recap. The opening scene unveils a sky as red as blood and a massive, badass dragon. Below, a throng of warriors stands tall, facing off against a ferocious dragon. The man with fiery red hair grimaced fiercely and shouted with all his might. That's Kenderzik, keep your guard up. Genlocker, I will put an end to your assault on the Empire right here and now. Faced with his audacious declaration, the dragon found him utterly irritating. You little insects never tire of yapping, do you? Though surrounded, Genlocker revealed no shred of fear, fully committed to sending them all to their doom. Half of this empire is a pitiful toll compared to the life of my child. I'll send you all to hell. And then I'll crush that pathetic empire into dust. With that, both sides lunged at each other, igniting the fierce battle. It was a fight packed with tension, like a bowstring drawn tight. But suddenly, everything shifted, as if it were all just a scripted tale. I'll kill you. The thumping of a heart. Turns out, this was merely a scene from a fantasy comic. I'll kill you. The entire intense scene was conjured up by our main character through the comic panels flickering before him. He gazed intently at the comic, his focus sharp but tinged with profound weariness. On the computer screen, the clash of fire and fury between the two sides continued to unfold. The young man with a haggard visage, looking like he was on the verge of shutting down, lay motionless on the hospital bed. That's Lyser. And the grim disease that brought him to this pitiful state is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, widely known as Lou Gehrig's disease. This is no ordinary illness, as it gradually kills nerve cells, leading to muscle paralysis and eventually death. Lyser recalled the moment he was left speechless when the doctor revealed the dreadful diagnosis. At the tender age of 35, I realized this disease was my death warrant. So young, without any family, and the savings I had fought tooth and nail to build. He felt completely devastated and miserable upon accepting this was the end of his bright future and healthy life. With so much left to experience, it all crumbled to dust because of that disease. 4 years after the diagnosis of Lou Gehrig's disease, at 29 years, all I have left is a frail, withered body. At that moment, Lyser felt like a dry, yellowed leaf clinging to a branch, ready to fall. Yet, he still clung to one thing. This amateur webtoon. The heartbeat on the monitor remained steady. It may sound gloomy, but perhaps this tale was his only companion during those final days. This is really all I have left. Luis gazed blankly ahead, as if his spirit had departed. Realizing the Grim Reaper might be approaching, the heartbeat was steady, but in an instant, the heart monitor began to blare incessantly, signaling a heartbeat irregularity. Now, his deep eyes reflected only the image of his heart rate line, slowly fading. It appeared Luis could fight the illness no longer, and his eyelids began to droop, preparing to end his youth right here. So, this is it. The last thing he noticed in life was a doctor racing toward him. Luis's vision started to blur. Now, only pitch-black darkness remained, mirroring his unfortunate fate. Ultimately, he still didn't witness the ending. Luis had foreseen this outcome. Naturally, this is how I meet my end. The fluctuating heart rate line shifted from green to silver. Suddenly, in stark contrast to the endless darkness, a blinding light burst forth like the sun. Slowly, Luis opened his eyes, but the sight before him featured none other than Genlocker, the character from his beloved webtoon. When he saw Luis, the man beamed with joy, as if he'd hit the jackpot. Grinning widely, he was completely oblivious to the situation. What is happening here? Then he was lifted into the air. However, the odd thing was, when he glanced in the mirror, he found he'd transformed into a tiny dragon. Faced with this bizarre sight, disbelief washed over him. What? I thought I had already kicked the bucket. Yet now, caught in this predicament, Luis felt his face pale with fear. He just could not stomach this outrageous resurrection. So, he screamed loud enough to rattle the castle. What on earth is going on? And that's how the tale began. I've turned into a dragon. After calming down, he placed his hands on his hips, feeling feisty. At first, I genuinely believed I was about to faint. Though this entire experience was a shock for Luis, he finally found his composure. I've moved past denial and am ready to face this. Now. Luis strolled around the room, exploring his new realm. After overcoming that initial shock, I set out to understand what was happening. Soon enough, Luis began to adjust to his new identity. However, once I embraced reality, I realized I had been reborn as a dragon. To him, this was incredibly thrilling and impressive. In all the novels and webtoons I've ever encountered, there have never been any weak dragons. How could I ever complain about being reborn as a dragon, becoming the mightiest beast in existence? But there was more. The crucial fact he kept in mind was that the average dragon lives for 10,000 years. Now, wielding such immense strength, he was reminded of his unfortunate past life. I had to start hustling from a very young age. Not only that, but Luis also faced a terminal illness. Tragically, his life ended prematurely, filled with regrets over unfulfilled dreams. Then he got sick and passed away at the peak of his life. But this time is different. He's been reborn as a dragon. A lengthy and healthy life is truly a lifetime blessing. Just the mere thought of it filled him with such happiness that his grin stretched from one ear to the other. But a few moments later, his mood began to shift. Am I getting a bit too hyped? If I keep this up, nothing can stop me. He wagged his tail in excitement, showcasing just how thrilled he was about his new life. I'm a dragon. At that instant, Genlocker approached and scooped him up. My dear Luis. He cradled him like a baby and sweetly asked, "What's got you smiling so bright?" Then Genlocker carried him to his first meal. All right, let's dig in. In the dim room illuminated by a lone candle, it felt wonderfully cozy. Luis was dressed in a cute yellow bib. Suddenly, though, his expression shifted to one of seriousness. His eyes widened as he stared at the food before him, breaking into a cold sweat, utterly shocked. As expected, a dragon's meal was anything but ordinary. It was a strange sight, a mound of red mush served on a plate. Noticing Luis freeze at the odd dish, Genlocker inquired with concern, "What's the matter? Aren't you hungry? This is the finest dish, freshly prepared. So hurry up and feast." Moments ago, he was joyfully embracing his dragon identity. But now his expression darkened. Why didn't I consider this? Still, he was committed, so he had no choice but to push through. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So, as a dragon, he had to abide by the dragon's traditions. Luis summoned all his bravery, grabbed a piece, squeezed his eyes shut, and took a bite. Talk about a sudden turnaround. One moment he was disgusted, the next he was totally hooked on the dish. Wow. This is actually pretty tasty. Initially hesitant to eat, one bite led to an irresistible craving, and he went for more. The more he indulged, the more delicious it became to Luis. Watching him dig in with enthusiasm, Genlocker couldn't help but beam. Is it good? Son, there's still plenty left. Eat up. Observing his expression, Luis felt a little judgmental. Your eyes are practically sparkling. Yet, in the blink of an eye, Luis said something that left the old dragon taken aback. I don't want any more. Dad. Hearing those words, he was in disbelief. Dad? What he had hoped would be a heartwarming moment ended up being a major letdown. What's going on with you? It's supposed to be father, right? He couldn't let Luis just say whatever came to mind, so he decided to guide him. Say it now. Father. But in response to Genlocker's parenting approach, Luis simply shot him an awkward glance. He thought this whole scenario felt a bit odd for a dragon. Oh my gosh. I'm a dragon. You know. But then Luis realized something. Wait a minute. I don't even know his name. Do I? While the old dragon was getting choked up over what to be called, Luis broke the silence and asked, So, what's your name? Genlocker hesitated to answer, instead asking back, Is that really all you're curious about right now? Your father's name is... He paused, holding the food, eagerly awaiting Luis's response. But as soon as he uttered it, Luis stood frozen for 5 seconds, speechless in shock. Genlocker? The old dragon affirmed it. That's correct. Your father's name is Genlocker. At that moment, a memory began to bubble up in his mind. He recalled the fierce image when the beast within him had truly awakened. I will annihilate all of you. He had thought he was reborn as a dragon, but it turns out he had transformed into a dragon straight out of a comic book. Hearing that voice, his eyes flew open as he focused ahead, unable to comprehend that the person before him was actually his own father. In that instant, the chandeliers above were still peacefully hanging above him. Upon seeing Luis gazing at him with an utterly confused expression, he felt a wave of bewilderment wash over him. He hadn't even moved a muscle. Yet Luis was already pressed against the door, a look of sheer panic etched on his face. Hey. Luis. Overcome by shock, Luis crashed through the door and dashed outside, crying his eyes out. This can't be real. He knew Janneker like no one else. So he bolted out like a gust of wind. His mind in chaos. No way. As Luis ran, he continuously told himself that this situation couldn't possibly be true. No way. Moments later, he burst into a room and flung the door wide open. Stepping inside, he was greeted by a spectacular, expansive room brimming with countless books. He hurried over to a bookshelf and quickly reached for a volume. Luis urgently flipped through its pages, scanning one after another with intense determination. After a short while, he finally located what he sought and stopped, fixating intently on the page. What Luis needed to know was the history of this realm. The HW Empire. That's the empire from that amateur webtoon I perused before I kicked the bucket. It's like life just adores throwing me curveballs. He let the book slip from his grasp and looked up, his heart heavy. I wasn't reborn as a dragon. I was reborn into that webcomic. Suddenly, something clicked in Luis's mind. Just then, Jenner stumbled into the library and called for Luis, startling him to the core. Noticing Luis acting oddly, Jenner brought over a plate of fruit and gently inquired, "My son, are you all right?" Faced with Jenner's concern, Luis found it in stark contrast to the fierce figure he remembered from before. He was such a caring and gentle father. But then there was, "You all will face my wrath." Is he genuinely about to turn into a murderous villain? What on earth is happening? Just the thought made Luis's heart ache, and in his mind's eye, he couldn't shake the image of Jenner wreaking havoc in this place. "I'll never know peace again. Because of your arrogance. I must drown this entire land in blood." However, at that moment, Luis's expression suddenly brightened as he recalled an important detail. That's right. Janek only goes berserk after his son is killed by a human, but as soon as that thought crossed his mind, he froze. Something felt horrendously off. Does that imply, terrified that he might be that doomed son? He quickly asked, "Father, do I have any older brothers?" But it seemed his dreadful destiny was already sealed as his father replied, "An older brother? No, Luis. You are the firstborn." Hearing this, he broke out in a cold sweat, wildly waving his hands as if to shoo away the grim tidings, and immediately questioned Jenner. "So, are you considering having more kids?" But life isn't a fairy tale. His father simply flashed a bright smile, utterly crushing his last shred of hope. "Nope. I promised your mother we would have only one child and raise him right." The situation grew as tense as a drawn bowstring, and the air became heavier as he grasped the reality of his ominous fate. "So, does this mean nobody was born before or after me?" It felt like his life, which had just started to flourish, was now crumbling, as if the end of the world had come. The kid who pays the price is me. Just the thought of it made him dizzy, his head swirling. In that webby tale, Jen Locker lost her child and exacted revenge on the whole empire. All of a sudden, after absorbing this life-altering truth, he was so taken aback that he collapsed right there. Luis was now completely dumbfounded, realizing he was merely a background character, nothing more. "I'm just a pawn in this story's unfolding. The offspring of an evil dragon destined to disappear into thin air." Even before the story kicks off, Luis felt tears carving tracks down his cheeks, quietly grieving a life that was snuffed out before it even had a chance to truly begin. "I've become a dragon meant solely to perish." The outside world was now overwhelmingly dark and eerily silent, with not a single soul to be found, only one room bathed in a soft, warm golden glow. It's true that wealth doesn't always equal happiness. Even while rolling around on a towering mountain of gold coins, he still couldn't enjoy a single moment, knowing he was on the brink of his own demise. He lay there, endlessly brooding and sighing in weariness. "Just like my past life, I still seem doomed to meet an early end." Even living in opulence with a family that has nothing but riches, knowing he was on the verge of 6 feet under, all those coins suddenly felt so transient and pointless. How the heck am I supposed to use all this now? Die again? Did I really trade everything for this? But with an incredibly strong will to survive, he couldn't just accept this destiny and resolve to take action. "No way. I'm not letting myself die such a senseless death." This time, Luis wouldn't just passively await his doom. He decided to take charge, to change his fate. He soared up to a tall bookshelf and seized a book. Among all the tomes there, Luis picked one with a brown cover. Flipping it open revealed that the inside was crammed with countless words. To alter his fate, he first needed to remember the storyline to prevent its outcome. The year she went berserk. I must remember it. Luis began to think deeply about what he needed to start on. Jen Locker only went on that rampage after losing her kid, right? If I can pinpoint when that occurs, I'll know precisely when I'm slated to exit. After racking his brain, he finally recalled the pivotal piece of info, the year 3589 AD. Panic surged through Luis's face, his eyes wide with disbelief. This is it. He grabbed an ink pen and began scribbling a few lines on a blank page. Luis noted down his forecasts for the future. Currently, it's 390 AD. So by then, I'd be about 498 or 499 years old. A pang of regret hit him as he wrote. So I'm set to die just 1 year shy of adulthood. To perish while I'm still a kid. But this time will be different. This time, he had to take action, instead of just waiting for death to knock. No way am I kicking the bucket. He made a resolute promise to himself that he absolutely had to survive for the next 499 years. I will not back down. A fierce flame of will to live blazed in Luis's heart. Just wait and see. The scene transitions to another room. It was chow time. Luis, donned in a bib, was happily sitting at the table, slurping down the bowl of soup before him. Just the day prior, Locker had witnessed him nibble like a sparrow, so he couldn't help but gawk at the sight of him now devouring food like a famished wolf. After Luis wiped off every single drop in the bowl, he set it down and cheerfully asked, "Could I get another bowl? Please?" Watching Luis eat with such vigor brought him immense joy, and he eagerly ladled a hefty scoop for him. "Here you go then." Jen Locker placed a generous bowl of food right in front of him. Luis stared at it, his expression filled with determination to finish it all. "Dig in, there's plenty more. So eat until you're stuffed." Suddenly, as they were munching away, a pesky bug zoomed above their heads. However, this bug looked anything but harmless, as it headed straight for Luis's meal. It could have landed anywhere, but it chose the very spoonful of food Luis was about to wolf down. With Luis about to take a bite of that bug, Jen Locker couldn't hold back his panic any longer, and freaked out. "My son." The swift reflexes of a parent kicked in, and he quickly swatted the food away. Just when Luis was enjoying his meal, Jen Locker interrupted, leaving him quite annoyed. What was that about? After ensuring the bug had met its end, he finally let out a relieved sigh. "You almost got yourself in a big pickle. You know, in the blink of an eye." Jen Locker held the bug out and gave Luis a thorough explanation. "This is a synthetic creature I'm studying, but you won't have to worry. It's harmless to our dragon kind. Still, since you're young, it's better to be cautious. It's quite poisonous." Hearing Jen Locker's startling words, he jumped back in shock, his face completely aghast. "Poisonous?" His face paled visibly in fear. Jen quickly reassured him, "But you haven't eaten it, so you should still be okay." While Jen Locker pondered how that bug had appeared, Luis was still recovering from his near mishap. "That was a close call. I need to be more vigilant." He then stepped into a large chamber. Inside, a crimson carpet stretched out before him, flanked by suits of armor standing sentinel along the entrance. Faced with this impressive scene, he was over the moon, his eyes sparkling like headlights on a car. Little did Luis know that his 82nd trial was about to unfold. The eyes of the suit of armor glowed crimson, and before he knew it, it sprang to life, raising its weapon for an unexpected ambush on Luis from behind. But with his sharp instincts, he sensed something was amiss. Too late. The axe swung down like a flash of lightning. He turned his head, and upon realizing he was about to be struck, he started to scream in fear. Wasn't Jen Locker something else? He swooped in from nowhere like a hero and blocked the axe with his hand, snatching Luis from certain doom. Anyone daring to lay a finger on his son faced a death sentence. Jen Locker charged forward, swiftly pushing Luis aside, his own eyes flaring red, radiating an intense killing intent. He grabbed the axe, his entire body glowing with that purple aura. In a heartbeat, Jen Locker completely annihilated the suit of armor with an explosive force. Spotting Luis's pale, terrified face, he quickly crouched down to check on him. "Luis, are you okay?" Confronted with that mysterious threat, he found himself just as confused. "This is odd. I know I took precautions to keep you safe." His brand new journey had only just begun a few days prior, yet disaster seemed to follow him around. Did I really almost bite the dust twice in a single day? No way. Thankfully, for the next few days, everything seemed normal, and I felt reassured. Then, Jen Locker took Luis to a vibrant emerald field brimming with flowers. He danced around, bursting with energy. "This is stunning." His eyes widened as he spotted a gigantic, awe-inspiring mountain in the distance. Noticing Luis's amazement, Jen Locker elaborated. "That's known as the Left Fang of the Earth, one of the massive peaks at the edge of the continent. It's also famously known as the God's dwelling place, that mystical realm." Experiencing it firsthand, Luis understood just how breathtaking everything truly was. It might even outshine anything he'd known before. "It's nothing like what I read in the books." Suddenly, while Luis joyfully played, a vibrant blue butterfly flitted by. He was captivated by the butterfly and chased after it with enthusiasm. "So gorgeous. I adore it." However, the joy was short-lived, as thunder roared and dark clouds gathered, crashing down Luis's cheerful spirit. The sky grew black, devoid of any light. looking gravely ominous. In mere moments, a fierce bolt of lightning struck where he stood, nearly turning him into a charred dragon. The shock hit him unexpectedly, leaving him limp and looking utterly defeated. What is happening? Seeing his friend attacked like this, Genlocker became alarmed. His face drained as he rushed to check on Luis, but it was too late. Before he could intervene, Luis was hit by another staggering bolt of lightning. This one struck with even more ferocity. After 2 consecutive shocks, Luis's body buzzed with electricity, trembling, teetering on the edge of collapse. I see now. Is this the plan? But the universe was not done with Luis yet, conjuring more lightning bolts, ready to slam down on him repeatedly. Life is no dream. Destiny was sealed, and there was no way for Luis to escape. A bolt of lightning, far mightier than the previous hits, struck Luis one final time, sending him to join his ancestors. Do they really want me dead this badly? He was struck again and again, without a chance to fight back. Genlocker felt helpless and could only rush to hold Luis's cold body, weeping uncontrollably. The scene shifted to Luis's bedroom. Just when it seemed he was a goner, his ancestors must have been watching over him, as he miraculously survived. I nearly met my end. However, Luis didn't chalk this up to mere chance. He was convinced there was more to it. Struck by lightning 3 times at the same spot, the horrifying images of each lethal strike replayed endlessly in his mind. Faced with this reality, doubt crept in. What are the odds of this happening in such a brief time? But the more he pondered, the more Luis realized he couldn't dodge his destined fate. That's right. It's because the plan wants me gone. Yet still, Luis didn't anticipate it occurring so quickly. But right now, after all that, Luis certainly didn't expect events to unfold so rapidly. But at this moment, then Luis. He began recalling the storyline, and sensed something was amiss. I'm not supposed to kick the bucket for another 498 years. And I'm meant to meet my end at the hands of a human. What's going on? The thought of him, an all-powerful being, meeting his demise like that was a notion he was unwilling to accept. No way, is it just that I don't want to die, even now? Luis still couldn't face the fact that he held no significant part in the tale and was merely a supporting character. Damn it. The narrative can only begin once I'm gone. But then I pondered how that baby dragon from the original story managed to live for 500 years. I mean, he had just recently taken on the dragon role and was already facing one catastrophe after another. Thus, he couldn't help but wonder what trials awaited him next, as his heart was a whirlwind of conflicting feelings about what lay ahead. After sitting stiffly on the bed for a while, Luis gradually rose to his feet. Despite fate having knocked him around a few times, Luis' determination to survive was now stronger than ever. There's no time to overthink. I need to take action. From outside the room, his fierce will to live was palpable. I need something to save me from this impending doom. Resolute, he boldly approached Genlocker's room and flung the door wide open. Father, as Luis finally addressed him as father, a radiant smile blossomed on Gen's face, overflowing with joy. Genlocker gently inclined to ask, "What's on your mind, son?" He wasted no time and asked directly, "Father, do you have anything at home that can protect you?" Hearing such an odd question caught him off guard. But he responded, "A protective device? I do have one, but it's too early for you to use it." He then explained further, "To operate it, you need a power known as elemental energy, and it also requires substantial training to harness it." Noticing Luis's curiosity, he gently patted his head and remarked, "You're still too young. Wait until you're older to learn. Just a few hundred more years, okay?" However, he was well aware that if he waited those few hundred years, he'd be 6 feet under. So, he was resolute to argue. "No, I want to learn now." Faced with Luis's stubbornness, was Genlocker really going to cave in? Luis sighed deeply. Determination etched on his face. "I don't want to wait. I want to learn now." Genlocker was flustered. "Huh?" He was taken aback. But you're still too young." Luis dashed over and clung to his arm, his eyes shining with determination. "Can't I? Just because I'm young doesn't mean I can't learn." Genlocker scratched his head and thought, But typically, you start learning after you outgrow the hatchling phase." His eyes looked pitiful yet still shone brightly. Unable to resist, he helplessly relented. "Fine. I'll teach you." Luis was overjoyed, waving his front paws in sheer delight. "Really? Then teach me right away, right this minute," Genlocker continued. "But before we start," he grinned, "there's a place we need to visit first," he teased. "What place?" Luis asked with curiosity. Genlocker snapped his fingers and said, "It's where young dragons go to discover their elemental abilities for the first time. You need to meet the elders first." Luis bolted out the door, joyfully shouting as he went, "Father!" Genlocker instantly scooped him up in a hug, laughing. "I'm right here." Luis looked up and queried, But how do we get to where the elders are? Suddenly, around Gen Locker, mysterious purple lights began to glow. To reach it, we'll need to take flight. He chuckled with a grin. Luis lifted his tiny arm to protect himself from the purple glow. The lights swirled together, forming a giant circle. Alarmed, Luis thought to himself, is he turning into a dragon right now? Just then, Gen Locker morphed into a massive black dragon. With wide eyes, Luis exclaimed, is that a real dragon? The dragon lowered its head and invited Luis. Hop on board. He carefully climbed onto Gen Locker's enormous hand. Then, with a powerful flap of its gigantic wings, the dragon warned, hang on tight. In a flash, they soared into the sky. Luis, nestled in Gen Locker's palm, felt a thrill of fear. This is pretty high. The dragon flapped its wings, gliding effortlessly. Terrified, gripping the claw tightly, Luis shouted, how much higher are we going? Gen Locker glanced back and chuckled lightly. We've still got quite a distance to travel. Soaring higher into the azure sky. Luis looked down. Are we heading into space? Gen Locker replied. Luis, we're almost there. By this time, they had entered the realm of stars, and before them stood a sparkling castle. Luis, astonished and wide-eyed, gasped, oh my gosh. Gen Locker looked over. Surprising, isn't it? This place is known as the Holy Land of Dragons. Before them hovered a castle in the clouds. It was the illustrious Golden Flower Castle. Gen Locker landed gracefully. Luis stared up in awe. Wow. It looks even more magnificent in person. Gen Locker turned back into a man and walked beside him. All right. Let's enter. The duo stepped into an expansive space, where a voice rang out. So, you've made it? It was Sandergia, the revered leader of the 13 Dragon Elders. Gen Locker bowed deeply, saying, greetings. Sir, I am Gen Locker, son of Pamus. Luis was still in disbelief, stuttering. Hello, Pamus. One elder chuckled and remarked, huh, is that your boy? He certainly seems smarter and more polite than Pamus's grandson. The dragon beside him quickly became irritated. You old coot, Gen Locker retorted. It's been too long. Father, Pamus, one of the 13 elders, responded. Yes, it's been 623 years. Last time you were here was to introduce your bride, Valentina, right? Then he grumbled. And you should have brought that boy here as soon as he was born. Why is this the first time I'm meeting my grandson with all these old geezers around? Gen Locker clarified. Luis is only 1 month old. Did you really want to drag him here? Pamus clenched his teeth. He then studied Luis, who gazed up innocently, eyes sparkling and face adorable. Pamus was taken aback, as though he had been hit by Cupid's arrow. His cheeks flushed. He burst out laughing. That's right. I'm your grandpa. How can my grandson be this charming? The two dragons whispered to each other. This old fellow seems to really dote on his grandkid. He's been anticipating a grandchild for ages. Let him have this moment. Sandergia interjected. So, you wish to know about Luis's powers? Isn't it too soon? Gen Locker replied. I thought so as well. But Luis has shown a desire to learn. Pamus, standing there, smiled widely. Wonderful. This kid truly has a curiosity for knowledge, just like his granddad. Sandergia snapped back. Hush up. You old coot. Fantastic. This kid's got a thirst for knowledge, just like his grandpa. Sandergia snapped. Pipe down. You ancient fossil. He shot a glare at the mumbling old man, annoyance written all over his face. Step into the center. Luis? Luis felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. Father Genlock raised a reassuring hand. No need to fret. Son, just step forward. All you have to do is stand still. He stepped into the central circle, surrounded by the elders with their watchful eyes. Luis inhaled deeply, his face tense. Sander glanced over and said, let's kick this off. The elders extended their hands, conjuring streams of light. Each elder wielded a unique power, and together, their abilities soared upwards. Luis observed in awe. Incredible. Sander lifted a glowing orb. Hey kid, shut your eyes and chant. My lifelong companion. With his eyes tightly shut, Luis summoned various powers above him. Come forth. A radiant beam of light surged around Luis. Sander studied the orb in his grasp, shaped like an hourglass. Genlock's eyes widened in surprise. An abstract attribute? Could it be time? He mused, feeling a swell of pride. Abstract attributes often pack a stronger punch than natural ones. My son is truly exceptional. Elder Muso scrutinized the orb he held. Suddenly, he erupted into laughter. A strength attribute, just as I knew would emerge from our bloodline. My grandson boasts 2 entire attributes. Elder Toa also stared intently at the orb in his possession. A dual attribute in our time. It's been ages. Elder Muso remarked in astonishment. A space attribute too? 3 attributes. He added, the first Dragon King, Seir, and the infamous dragon lost to darkness. Throughout the dragon race's lengthy history, only these two have ever existed, with 3 attributes. Louise floated amongst the orbs. This kid is meant to make history. The elder's jaws dropped in disbelief. Is this even real? He has a mental attribute as well. All the powers surged toward Luis. Genlock shielded his eyes from the blinding lights radiating around him. Luis leaped with excitement. He gleefully embraced the orbs, exclaiming, "Whoa! Whoa!" Suddenly, a realization hit him. Massive pairs of eyes loomed over him from above, startling Luis. While clutching the orbs, he quivered. What? Why is everyone staring at me like that? Genlock's mouth fell open in shock. Luis sat in a chair, arms crossed, lost in deep thought. He remembered the meeting with the elders. Time, space, strength, mental. All 4 attributes were abstract, a talent that left the elders speechless. Holding so much potential it could shake up the original story's balance. With such power, can I single-handedly change the course of this narrative? He slumped, resting his hands on the table. It's possible that this could change how the plot unfolds. They're probably furious they can't take me out. Luis sighed and leaned back in his chair. But honestly, what's the point of this talent if I'm likely to bite the dust before I can even grow up? He crossed his arms, deep in thought. Then, out of the blue, Luis slammed his hand on the table. No worries. There's still hope. And if this gift can shift things, I've got another shot. He soared over to the bookshelf and yanked out a few books. As long as I nurture it properly, my odds of survival will surely rise. The most crucial thing is I'm no longer the Luis from the original story. Luis held up 2 books, The Basic Principles of Magic Skills and The Foundations of Martial Arts. Now that I've uncovered memories from my previous life, I can completely grasp the impending crisis. From this moment forward, I'll harness these memories to bolster my strength and elevate my chances of survival. A man was gripping a fierce red flame in one hand and a chunk of gleaming white ice in the other. Magic skills allow for attribute manipulation. A tall, brawny man stood ready, employing martial arts to command both the attributes and his own physique. Which should I dive into first? Or, Louise grinned, shaking off his doubts and opting to master both at once. He soared high with sheer joy. This body belongs to a dragon, blessed with an abundance of mana right from birth, and possesses all 4 attributes. With just a bit of effort, I'll surely defy my destiny. Luis was resolute and pounded his hand on the table. All right, let's get to it. Suddenly, something rattled behind him, causing him to jump and spin around. A voice chimed in. Well, I've kept you waiting. My dear Louise. Genlock cheerfully bustled in with a mountain of food. Time for a feast. My boy. Luis looked up with bright eyes and said, Ahem. Before tackling anything substantial, one must fuel up first. An army marches on its stomach. So, eat first. Train later. There were 2 azure stones of the water attribute, shaped like ice blue crystals. A chewy brown root of the wood attribute from the Netto family. A vibrant orb of the wind attribute. A fluffy cloud jellyfish that looked like cotton candy. And a dark blue heart of the thunder attribute. The heart of the thunderbird was a tad carbonated, though these items housed enough energy to blow a person up if ingested recklessly. Since dragons possess an organ known as a dragon's heart, they can transform natural mana into their own attributes, allowing them to munch on these delicacies without a hitch. Luis kept eating, reminding himself, I need to devour plenty and grow up fast. After a bit, he began to feel drowsy. Genlock chuckled. He sighed. The little one must be worn out. Luis drifted into a deep sleep, snuggling his stuffed rabbit. Suddenly, a purple orb appeared in the air. The orb gradually morphed, turning into a fork. In a heartbeat, it began to float on its own. Suddenly, its speed picked up significantly, and the fork crashed hard to the ground. A purple creature hovered in the air, slowly making its descent. A sound rang out as the sky brightened and birds took flight beneath the warm sunlight. Luis slowly roused, rubbing his eyes. When did I doze off? Must have been while I was eating. Outside, a voice called, Luis, get up and eat. Son. He climbed out of bed. Yes, sir. Suddenly, Luis slipped. Then he fell flat on his face onto the floor. Right in front of him was the fork from last night, embedded straight into the ground. Whoa, what's this? Luis picked it up cautiously. I nearly met my doom thanks to a fork in the floor. Even someone blind could tell this was undeniably a massive death flag. Then he noticed his tail had been tied with a string. Why do I have to be this unlucky? The stuffed rabbit lay damaged on the floor. Luis shouted, Toto. He scooped up the rabbit, carrying it out of the room. You're the only one I can vent my frustration on. I'll have to ask Dad to fix you later. While Luis ate, Genlock worked diligently, saying, Toto, being damaged has made my Louise unhappy. As he stitched up the stuffed rabbit. Don't frown anymore. Your dad will fix Toto. Sue looked even more stunning than ever. After what felt like an eternity, Louise sprang awake in his bed, utterly confused. Wait, where am I? A voice called from outside. Louise, hurry up and get out of bed. It's time for breakfast. Son. Louise glanced nervously at the stuffed rabbit. Still on the bed beside him. Suzu has been repaired. Yes, he shrank back by the door, feeling uneasy. Dad. Something feels really off. Genlock was taken aback. What? Why? How did my son get injured? Louise crossed his arms and stammered. Seriously. I'm not sure if this is an injury or not. My memories are all jumbled. And I feel so sleepy. He watched on, perplexed. Then Genlock returned to cooking and said, it's that time, isn't it? Louise was taken aback. No. I'm not hurt. It's just that my sleepiness is kicking in. Genlock clarified. Our dragonkin must go through 2 sleep cycles to reach adulthood. If you're feeling drowsy all the time, then your first sleep cycle must be starting soon. Louise asked curiously. How long will I be asleep for? Genlock paused. There's no set duration. But it'll be approximately. He was stunned by his father's words. About 100 years. Louise panicked. No way. Just a few days ago. I dealt with that whole Discord mess. And now? I have to sleep for a whole 100 years. He clutched his small head in despair. This must mean I'm prepping to kick the bucket, he dashed off. This can't be real. Genlock was startled and yelled after Louise. Louise tied a towel around his head, filled with fiery resolve. I need to craft a plan to stay awake for as long as I can. A grand plan took shape. First, limit my meals, as a full belly will make me drowsy. Second, no baths, since that'll put me at ease. Third, minimize my movements. That'll keep me restless. Fourth, steer clear of the bed. Even the sight of it makes me want to crash. Louise wrote fervently. Okay. From this moment on, I will do my very best to stay awake. He sluggishly strolled down the hallway. Louise sighed deeply. Genlock, with a bowl of food, called out. Louise, you have to eat more. Please. He tried to shove food into Louise's mouth. Come on. Just one more bite. Son. Louise bolted in fear and shouted. Louise. He tiredly entered the library. Whew. That was nearly a disaster. Good thing I came to just in time. Louise grabbed a book to read. I can't let my guard down until I figure out how to dodge sleep. The book's page read, How to always stay awake. Stand and pinch your cheeks. Eat spicy food. Splash your face with cold water. Don't read books. His vision began to haze over. Louise jolted himself awake by pinching his cheeks. Whoa. No. No. Then he felt himself starting to drift away again. No. He shot back awake. Louise smacked his cheeks again. Yelling. I can't. His vision blurred. Yet his mind resisted. No. After a time without measure. Familiar calls of Louise's name echoed in the air. From the bed, Louise sprang awake. A cheerful Genlock stood before him. Did you have a good nap? Dad? Louise raised his hand. I didn't sleep. Just zoned out for a bit. He knelt on one knee. Congrats. My boy. Louise looked up. Confused. What's the celebration for? Then he gasped. His jaw dropping wide open. I'm celebrating your 100th birthday, Louise. 100 years ago. A voice called in the room. Louise. Genlocker strolled in. Louise. How about a snack? He noticed Louise fast asleep on the floor, buried under a mountain of books. Books. A smile crept across Genlocker's face. Well, it seems you dozed off while reading. Huh? He gently scooped Louise up and laid him on the bed. Genlocker chuckled softly. Shouldn't you eat a bit before drifting off? Soundly. He thought. But the kid is already in dreamland. So forget it. I hope he wakes up fine. Louise looked so adorable while snoozing. Sleep tight. My dear boy. I'll come see you tomorrow. Genlocker sat in a chair, diligently jotting down notes when a sudden loud crash jolted him. Without hesitation, Locker rushed to the door. What in the world is going on? Seeing Louise peacefully sleeping on the ground amid dust and smoke, he panicked. Louise! Genlocker knelt, pushing debris aside. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Louise remained sound asleep in his arms. He scanned the area, finding no signs of an intruder. Suddenly, a wooden beam splintered in two. Don't tell me my ceiling just decided to drop for fun. Then the entire wall came crashing down. Genlocker exerted every ounce of strength to shield Louise. For decades that followed, bizarre incidents kept happening. It felt like someone was out to get the boy. His room even caught fire. But Louise slept through it all. The boy had brushed with death countless times. Genlocker summoned his powers to form a magic circle. I can't comprehend why all this keeps happening to Louise. So, taking every precaution, I've built protective barriers in every way I can. He got hurt. And sadly, it shortened his lifespan a tad. But that's insignificant, as long as Luis is kept safe. The night sky twinkled with the moon and stars. For the past 60 years, a single peaceful night has eluded me. 4,120 incidents have threatened Luis's life. Genlocker stood on a cliff. Is someone actually plotting to take him out? But who would dare? Sunlight beamed down on the castle. The world has forgotten about dragons. Only a handful of ancient ones still know we exist. What could harm Luis that I'm unaware of? Genlocker pondered. Only a dragon might wield such power. Yet all the local ones fiercely protect their young. After everything, could the only answer be mere coincidence? I just can't figure it out. The hallway darkened suddenly. A massive explosion roared, sending debris flying everywhere. Genlocker harnessed his power. He clenched his teeth. His eyes blazed with furious intensity. Why do these heartless creatures even exist? A squad of armed soldiers appeared before him. The sound of commotion filled the air as the soldiers charged forward. Genlocker silently raised his hand, unleashing his wrath. Shadows of dark energy engulfed the area. The atmosphere thickened, and the soldiers stood frozen in horror. Suddenly, the shadows sharpened, piercing through their chests. The surrounding space darkened further. Genlocker grimaced, watching intently as the soldiers were swiftly decimated, their bodies strewn across the ground. He remembered a lesson from his father. A genius must endure many struggles. Not just that, but there will be even more trials ahead. Genlocker couldn't shake off his worries about those words, pondering what lay ahead for Luis. Baser frowned with sadness, reminiscent of the first Dragon King's fate. Meanwhile, in the present, Genlocker stood surrounded by dismembered soldier parts. Is it really true? Is Luis's gift so extraordinary they want to eliminate the boy? Clenching his fists, he declared, "No way. That can't be true." Genlocker's gaze hardened with resolve. Whatever gods or fate's whims at play, I will guard Luis against everything. The room had seen a thorough cleaning. Presently, Luis was fixated on the wall, deep in thought. As he glanced in the mirror, he rubbed his face, made some sounds, and raised his hand to check if he had grown any taller. Luis stomped his foot in frustration. Wasting a whole 100 years just to sleep. And this is all I've gained. At this thought, he shook slightly. I didn't think much about it before, but a significant chunk of my life has already slipped by. So 100 years have gone by. Luis mused. And here I am, still alive. He remembered his brushes with death. Nearly attacked by a stone statue and struck by lightning until his skin was charred. He narrowly avoided landing on protruding spikes. He pondered. Not a single day passed without a close call. Luis found it miraculous yet utterly perplexing. How did I stay safe while snoozing? How on earth is that possible? Luis reflected silently, and after a brief moment, he shut his eyes and stretched his arms wide. Oh well, no need to fret about it. I'm alive. And that's what truly counts. Genlocker called out, brandishing some food. Luis, time for dinner. Wrap it up. And come downstairs. All right. Yes. Sir. He observed the man closely. Why does father seem older? Has time taken its toll? Luis reminisced about the past. Perhaps I truly am a burden to my father. With newfound determination, he declared, okay, from now on, I'll be the best son and always listen to my dad. Luis shouted out, prompting Genlocker to glance his way. Father, wait for me, the man responded with a cheerful smile. Haha, come along. Father, I'm starving. Luis chatted merrily with Genlocker. But why do you look so worn out? How do I appear that exhausted? Yes, remember to catch some Z's before working. Father, haha, I'll keep that in mind. Next to a towering mountain, on a vibrant green lawn, under the glorious bright sunlight with lush trees swaying in the breeze, a boy brandishing a wooden sword raised it high, then brought it down fiercely, sending trails of smoke swirling around him. The tip of the sword landed with a thud on the grass at his feet. The boy was out of breath, sweat rolling down his cheeks, when he heard a voice call. Young master. He quickly turned around. Young Master Luis. The tale begins under a backdrop of blue skies, fluffy white clouds, and golden rays. At this moment, someone called out to the boy. Luis. A boy with shimmering platinum blonde hair and striking violet eyes turned at the sound of another's voice. Young Master Luis. Suddenly, a dainty white handkerchief floated through the air, the voice seemingly emanating from it. Here's your handkerchief. Sir. Luis swiftly grabbed the handkerchief, revealing a pair of tiny, adorable feet beneath it. Oh. I thought it was a chatty handkerchief, but it turns out a tiny fairy was hiding there all along. Finally able to inhale the fresh air, she released a sigh of relief. However, a moment later, the maid named Fee began to critique his conduct. Looks like you've been in your human guise for quite a spell now. You definitely belong to the illustrious divine dragon family, the magnificent and revered one. When she noticed that young Master Louis was silent and just fumbled with his handkerchief while wiping his face, she asked, "What's up, young master?" Turns out, he was quite fed up with Vin's designation. It's been 100 years. Can't you just drop the young master bit, Vin? Nonetheless, she didn't seem too thrilled with Louis's odd request. "But you still are my young master." Suddenly, she did a complete about-face and voiced her thoughts with fervor. "The privilege of serving the Forest Lord is the highest dream we fairies hold." Upon hearing this, a sly grin broke across Louis's face. What an honor. Now that I think about it, I've never truly appreciated that. At that moment, old memories flickered in his mind like scenes from a vintage film. This all probably began after my first hibernation. Louis was lounging and immersed in a book in his room when he sensed a presence and turned his head. Glancing back, he spotted a gigantic white gift box adorned with a red ribbon resting neatly on the table. But as he drew nearer, he looked around, completely baffled since there wasn't a soul in sight. "I'm sure I heard something just now." While he pondered this bizarre event, the box started to wiggle as if a living creature was trapped inside. Surprise, out of nowhere. A girl burst from the box, her face pale as a ghost. Gasping, "I can breathe." The sudden appearance of a girl in his room sent Louis into a state of shock. What the heck is happening? He was so startled by her entrance that he popped her with his tail. Phi took a massive hit from Louis, spinning through the air while screaming for what seemed like ages. After twirling around like a top, her head was spinning, making her lose her balance and collapse in a heap. Moments later, he walked over to Phi and started poking around, inspecting her wings. What on earth is this huge flying creature? Spotting Phi lying there, stiff as a board, Louis grabbed a brush and prodded her to check if she was okay. Then he used the brush to lift Phi up. At that moment, she hadn't fully come to and was still dazed, which confused him even more. What is this? But in a heartbeat, Phi regained her wits and shot her gaze at Louise with fierce intensity. She finally realized she was dangling like a coat on a hook and struggled to break free. Although Phi had made a hilariously awkward entrance, she composed herself, bowed, and introduced herself properly. "It's a true pleasure to meet you, Holy Dragon. I'm Phi from the royal lineage of the Fairy Light Kingdom. I am truly honored to bring you happiness in the days to come." Yet, despite Phi's warm and genuine greeting, Louise regarded her with an intensely critical stare, as if she were from another planet. When she noticed him staring at her blankly, Phi's shoulders drooped as she cautiously asked, "Could you please set me down?" Hearing this, Louise also regained his composure, plopped down on the floor, and crossed his arms to interrogate her. "Hey, what did you mean by that? What honor?" When Phi heard him inquire about the very thing she'd been working hard to prepare, she excitedly pulled out a white cloth. "Okay, take a look at this." Phi, as if she had been eagerly anticipating this moment for ages, gleefully yanked off the white cloth, unveiling an incredible surprise waiting for the mighty holy dragon. "We, from the fairy kingdom, have conjured up a magical gift." In an instant, a wardrobe brimming with endless stellar outfits appeared. The dress-up toy set of a fairy starlight was in her true element, instantly diving into a pitch for her way cool product. Seizing the unique androgynous traits of the fairy kin, the toy set featured apparel for both genders, along with styles for demons, angels, and many other intriguing choices, featuring a special edition set, just so you know. But wait, that's not all. The true star of the show was prepping for her grand entrance. However, the crux of the matter was this. With her boundless confidence, today's star was none other than Faye. I, a proud starlight fairy, boasted a flawless figure capable of rocking any outfit. Nonetheless, after listening to her chatter on, it became clear that Louise was a bit lost, leaving him frozen for 5 seconds, struggling to grasp the situation. Although seemingly irked by her long-winded intro, he managed to ask with patience, "Ah, so are you suggesting I use you as a living toy?" Realizing he had finally grasped her intentions, she snapped her fingers in delight. "You are a noble and wise holy dragon." Then, like a light switch flipping, Faye sprang into action, exclaiming, "So, it's you!" But just as she thought Louise had accepted her, he sent her spinning away in the air. Not a chance. Finding himself unexpectedly stuck with this annoyance, he scooped her up like a chicken and dashed off to vent to Genlock. "I had to go ask my father why on earth he would give me a gift like this, but it turned out to be the most beloved treasure among young dragons. Naturally, to me, playing with fairy dolls felt far from a fairy tale adventure or epic battle. However, messing around with a living doll-like being felt a tad unsettling. So, I needed to return her." After hearing she might be sent back to the factory, Faye felt as if a dagger pierced her heart and began to sob and wail, desperately clinging to him. "No. Why would you do this? Please, I'll do whatever you need. I can clean or do laundry, anything. She tossed her pride aside, gripping Luis's tail so tightly that it even startled him a bit. Please don't cast me aside. I beg you. Don't toss me away. It was only later I realized that befriending a dragon was a tremendous honor and a guaranteed path to greatness. The first king, who also unified the fairy clans, was the childhood toy of the inaugural Dragon King. After several days of pleading and tears, she was finally accepted as my assistant. Faye was already 800 years old. She was far more knowledgeable than I was and quite helpful with everyday tasks. Faye gazed up at Luis with big sparkling eyes and asked, Master Luis, what's on your mind? He extended his hand, saying, Nothing important. Now that my training's over, can we return to my studies? Upon hearing this, she lit up with a bright smile. Yes. Just a moment. She was a natural at spatial magic, rapidly storing items in tiny spaces. For Luis, Faye was not just a maid, but also a magical bag. You could even say she was my personal inventory. From various items ranging from A to Z, both small and large, were meticulously organized by her, and whenever I needed something, she effortlessly pulls it out. Here you go. My lord. Today, Finn is also taking on the role of Louis's instructor. Today's lesson is all about the intricacies of mana. An advanced course indeed. He eagerly grabbed the book. Thanks a bunch, Finn. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she summoned a plethora of sweets. From delightful cakes to aromatic tea, she had it all covered. I'm thrilled she's so at ease doing this. He made his way to the table, which was adorned with a mouth-watering array of desserts, and mused to himself, I'll need to get accustomed to this situation soon. The weather today is just perfect for a delightful outdoor tea gathering. While Luis immersed himself in his book, Finn was doing her utmost to pour him some tea. Yet, the clear blue skies didn't hold for too long before they grew dim with menacing clouds, ushered in by crackles of lightning. He was finally ready to hit the books diligently, but the weather soured the vibe, leaving him feeling let down as he closed his book. It's only been a few days. Is it acting up again? Glancing up at the sky, the dark clouds thickened ominously, thunder rumbled, and lightning flashed dramatically. Strikes of lightning illuminated the entire sky as they suddenly hit the ground right by him. Finn, sensing the impending danger, frantically called out a warning to Master Luis, but instead of panicking, he remained eerily calm and extended his hand. Who would guess that in the blink of an eye, all that lightning's energy would be consumed by Luis into the bracelet on his wrist? Feeling recharged with newfound power, he couldn't help but break into a huge grin. After so many strikes, Luis was now completely unfazed. In fact, he even harnessed it to amplify his own strength. I've been zapped by lightning hundreds of times by this point. That's more than enough. Eyeing the sparkling green gem on his hand, her jaw dropped in utter disbelief. An elemental gem. It leverages the principle that, the purer the power, the mightier it gets. On the flip side, the weaker it is, the quicker it escapes. It's a fairly stable, low-tier elemental gem. As it began to draw in the lightning, it also started filling up nicely. Once he noticed that his bracelet was bursting with energy, a new idea sparked. It's already maxed out. I need to swap it out quickly. But before he could set his plan in motion, she instantly protested with all her might. No, Master. In that split second, Luis glanced up at the sky, wide-eyed in sheer shock. Master, while he scrambled to grasp what was unfolding, several bolts of lightning rained down directly upon him. At that moment, Finn watched in sheer horror, as if her soul had vanished. A spatial field. After a moment, everything returned to normal, but her mind was still racing. He's so quick. So this is magic. Approaching level 1, faced with Luis's astounding display, Finn was overwhelmed with great admiration. Even as a chosen dragon, this speed is just way too rapid. Together, I must write a remarkable chapter in history for the entire elf tribe to hear. While she envisioned a brilliant future, Luis scrutinized her with an intense gaze. In that moment, he felt incredibly fortunate. Luckily, ever since I discovered spatial fields, these life-threatening situations can be handled effortlessly. My space attribute is nearly at level 1. Space and time may be on a higher level, but my brain is still stuck at level 5. I've focused so much on honing my spatial skills just to get by. But in doing so, I've completely overlooked my other qualities. I suppose it will take just a tad more time. Huh? With determination, he tightened his fist. But that's all right now. I'm definitely going to live long enough to see Mu lift a trophy. After finishing everything he needed to do, Luis clenched his fist and gazed toward the bright road ahead. All right. Let's do this. He couldn't just sit idly waiting for the world to unfold. So, he called out, Finn, fetch me the next book. Upon hearing him, she swiftly brought it over, right away. The scene shifts to a warm dining room where Luis and Jen Locker are sharing a meal together. Luis, holding a massive chicken leg, turned to ask, "Hey, Dad, where are you off to?" He noticed Jen had a gloomy and slightly sad expression. Jen Locker revealed his upcoming agenda. "I'm heading to Silverflower Castle. Louise, by the end of this month, Gia will be retiring." With wide-eyed innocence, he asked again for clarity. "Oh, is that Grandpa?" Hearing this, he fell into deep thought, unsure of how to respond. It's true he's retiring, but referring to him as Grandpa felt a bit weird. Nonetheless, Luis didn't mind the little details and called him what he wanted. What's the issue? A grandpa's friend is still a grandpa. At that remark, Jen Locker chose to say no more. "Whatever floats your boat." Luis then grabbed another big chicken leg and voiced his curiosity. "I get that Grandpa is retiring, but why are you going there, Dad?" It was pointless to hide things from him anyway. Jen Locker paused for a moment before replying. "The reality is," he said, placing a hand on his head and beaming with joy, "your father has been nominated to take over Elder Gia's role." When Luis heard that his father was honored with such an immense responsibility, he instantly gave a thumbs up. "Fantastic. Great job. You're amazing, Dad." Being praised by his son, Jen Locker was on cloud nine. If you think so, then it must be true. It became clear to him that he wasn't the only one working hard every day. His father was putting in just as much effort. "I wasn't the only one evolving over the years. My father, who's always been on top, has too." He just hit level 0 of the dark attribute. Witnessing his impressive and remarkable progress, Luis felt a swell of admiration. Even ordinary dragons couldn't reach that level. "My father achieved this at just 4,000 years old. Quite young by dragon standards, he held great hope in his father's daily growth. Enough to turn him into the ultimate big boss." This brought to mind the image of transforming into a demon from a webtoon he had devoured. In the original plot, Jen Locker was the crazed villain who wreaked havoc across the entire continent. His two primary traits were darkness and magic. With those attributes, Jen Locker's entire being turned a deep black hue. He earned the title of the second one to become a demon, but due to his own determination, Luis could breathe a little easier, knowing he was destined to rewrite this narrative. But that won't be happening this time around. "I've trained tirelessly for the past 100 years to ensure that it doesn't unfold again." But in that moment, Jen Locker suddenly felt a wave of nerves and stammered like he was about to spill a big secret to him. Luis noticed this and replied, "Yes, yet." He hesitated, not quite getting to the point, and kept stalling. After what felt like forever waiting for Jen Locker to spill the beans, Luis finally nudged him to just get on with it. "Just say it, Dad." In the next heartbeat, Jen Locker blurted out something astonishing that left Luis a little taken aback. "I never expected to be away from home for so long." Jen Locker awkwardly began giving reasons for his prolonged absence. Typically, it's rare for parents to be absent like this, but this time nobody else was fit for the job. So, usually, this process is dragged out for ages, yet this time, it's just for 10 years. That's it. But, to Luis, hearing those 10 years sounded like an eternity. With a sorrowful expression, he asked Jen Locker again. For an entire 10 years, the mood suddenly shifted to heavy and grim. Observing his son's gloomy face, he inched closer, wanting to offer some words of comfort but unsure what to say. But just when you'd think Luis would be heartbroken and downcast, he looked up with a face brighter than ever. "What a relief. That'll fly by," he exclaimed. Luis then shared what was behind his sudden cheerfulness. "I thought it would span a few hundred years. 10 years is just a decade, right?" Then Luis confidently told Jen Locker, "Besides, I'm already diving into the theory of lawlessness, so I'll just speed through this." Yet, it was unclear if Jen Locker caught a single word as he sat, lost in thought, looking utterly miserable. "Dad." Looking at Jen Locker's expression, he couldn't help but ponder one possibility. "Don't tell me you were wishing I'd break down and plead for you to stay." Even Jen Locker was puzzled and didn't know how to respond to Luis's inquiry. "I can't even tell what I was hoping for. Do you want anything else to munch on?" Though inside, he was a waterfall of tears. On the outside, he was still putting on a brave face. "Hold on a sec. Let me grab you some snacks." Faced with such detailed care from his dad, Luis was at a loss for words. "Seriously, Dad? I'm not a little kid anymore. You're the one acting like one." On a cheerful and sunny morning, the moment arrived for Jen Locker to leave. Not at ease about leaving his younger son, he piled on countless instructions before taking off. "The nutritional supplements are stashed in the freezer. And don't even think about skipping meals to train. Got it? The first aid kit is in your room's 3rd drawer. If you fall ill, remember to find the medicine and take it." And the list went on. Watching Jen Locker coddle him like a child, he reached his limit and urged him, "Dad, I'll be okay. You can go now. You've been tossing the same warnings at me for 4 hours straight." Luis couldn't bear being treated like a kid any longer and shouted, "I'm not a little kid anymore, and I'll only be solo for 10 years. He silently thought to himself, "It's actually Dad who's the real kid here." Before heading out, he had packed a small pouch for Luis and handed it to him. "Oh, and take this. It's a natural item called a communication stone." Inside was a smooth, perfect, round stone shimmering in a lovely shade of blue. They generally come in pairs, and when infused with energy, you can talk to one another regardless of distance. Luis took the stunning stone, his eyes gleaming like stars, overflowing with joy.